Will I stick to the books that I plan to read in July this year? Maybe, maybe not. Who knows? I certainly don't. Let's talk about the ones that I might get around to this month. So I'm still working away on reading all of the physical books on my shelves. We're at 43 at the moment. So picking from my shelves yet again is a book that I feel like I've had on so many TBRs, but I think this month might actually be the month. I'm talking about Fingersmith by Sarah Waters. Sarah Waters is easily one of my favorite authors. She writes books that tend to be queer, tend to be historical fiction novels, and the writing is really beautifully understated but also kind of lush, and I realise that those things kind of contradict each other a little bit, but I have read quite a few of her books now. Her book The Night Watch is one of my favourite books of all time, I think. I don't even really know what this one is about, but I hear it has some really great kind of plot twists, and I just think it's time. It's sitting on my shelves for so long now. I'm looking forward to picking it up. And then another book that has been a bit of an ongoing saga in my life. I started to read East of Eden by John Steinbeck when I was either in my late teens or early 20s, and at the time I never finished it for whatever reason. I didn't have any great aspirations to return to it, but as I get older I feel like it's a book that's calling me back again now that I'm in my mid-30s. And again, I don't actually remember a whole lot about what this book was about, but it's something that's just sort of been rattling around inside my head for a while. I know that a lot of people rate this as one of the best books ever written, and I have read and enjoyed other Steinbeck books before now, so I don't know what exactly it's been that's been putting me off reading this book a bit, but I feel like July is time for me. I'm somebody who does tend to slightly struggle with classics, so I'm hoping that this is a book that doesn't make me a bit slumpy, which they have been wont to do in the past, but I do remember that I did enjoy this book while I was reading it, so who knows why I actually never finished it. And then I always feel like summer is a really great time to read thrillers. I'm not sure what it is about it, but for me, they're just summertime books. I was very kindly sent this book by Penguin Viking, and it is a book called Like Mother, Like Daughter by Kimberly McCreight, and it is to be published in the UK and Ireland on the 31st of July, so the end of this coming month. This one just seemed quite intriguing to me, and I really wanted to know what it was about when I read the blurb. I requested it and they were lovely and they sent it on to me. So in this one we follow a daughter named Cleo. She is a college student, and I'm going to read the blurb for you because I feel like this can probably explain it much more succinctly than I ever could. So Cleo is a college student, rebellious and provocative with no interest in playing by the rules. Kat is her mother and her opposite, a happily married corporate lawyer, the essence of perfection. But when Cleo arrives home to find dinner burning, a bloody shoe under the sofa and no sign of Kat, it becomes clear that the one thing that both mother and daughter have in common is keeping secrets. Who is Kat really, and if her lies were meant to protect them, how dangerous is the truth? I want answers, so I'm gonna have to read it, aren't I? Hopefully this is one that I really fly through and enjoy. And another genre that always screams summer to me, but isn't a genre that I read all too often because I haven't really found my brand of this genre. So I'm talking about the romance genre, and typically I don't love romance books. I have enjoyed some, but never really thought about them much after I finished them. But I'm going to take a chance on who I think is probably the queen of romance at this point. She needs no introduction. I'm talking about Emily Henry and her newest book, Great Big Beautiful Life. This book has had some very mixed reviews. Some people really love it, and a lot of long-time Emily Henry fans actually really haven't been enjoying it at all, which is kind of why I picked it up. I've read Book Lovers in Beach Read and thought they were fine. I didn't love them, but I think it's a me problem more than anything. But I've heard people saying that this one feels maybe a little bit messy because it's a romance, it's quite literary, and it's also got a mystery. And I think people are kind of saying like, it's not really a romance novel, but that's sort of what draws me to it. So I just have a feeling that this one might be one that I enjoy more so than most romance books. So watch this space. And who would I be if I didn't have a Robin Hobb on a TBR for any given month? So I have been reading The Realm of the Elderlings by Robin Hobb for the last 2 years, I think. and I plan to read another one this month. So this is the 12th book in the realm of the Elderling series. It's called City of Dragons, and this is part of the quartet called the Rainwild Chronicles. I have read the first 2 books in this quartet, so this is the 3rd book in this quartet, and as it's so far into the series, I can't really say a whole lot about what this is about, but it is a bit of a quest series, and I believe in this one we are getting to where they were going. Robin Hobb has this way of keeping me really engaged through books that are quite long, hundreds and hundreds of pages sometimes. This one is one of the shorter ones, and yet sometimes when I look back I think about how nothing really happened, and yet I find her books so compulsive and so readable and so enjoyable. I think her character writing is incredible. Her plotting is slow but so well thought out. There's some really great payoff within her books if you have the patience. And I have all the patience in the world for Robin Hobb's writing, because there's something about this brand of fantasy that really tickles something within me. And I'm very excited to get going with it. It is not necessarily my favourite little series within the realm of the Elderling series, but by no means am I saying it's a bad series at all, because you're really up against it when you're trying to pick favourite Robin Hobbs, in my opinion. And hopefully this one is another one that I really enjoy. Next up then is another fantasy series that I have been reading for a really long time. I started this series back I think in 2018, if not 2019. I'm finally getting to what is officially the final book in the series. So I'm talking about the Dark Tower series by Stephen King. And then of course the last book is the namesake of this series, The Dark Tower. So this is obviously a series by Stephen King, and it is unlike anything that I think I've ever read before. It's very much typical of Stephen King in many ways, but then it's also a fantasy. It also feels like a sci-fi. It feels very speculative. It's got a lot of really incredible character work. There's a lot about place, and then all of the other things that you get along with Stephen King as well, some of those not so great. I've been reluctant to pick up each of the next books within this series. While I read them, I enjoy them, but once I finish them, I don't really feel compelled to keep going, and that has persevered throughout the whole series. Now there is another book called Wind Through the Keyhole that I want to read after this, that is also part of this series, but it's not officially the 8th book or anything like that. So I figure when I'm actually done this one, I can say I've read the Dark Tower series. I will read the other one, but anyway, I digress. Once again, this is a book that's quite far into a series, so I can't actually mention too much about what it's about, but this overall series is very much a quest series where a group of very different characters are on a mission, on a quest to go do something, and I don't want to say too much more than that. It very much is found family. There are a lot of sort of digressions from the main story because it is a Stephen King series, and who would he be if he wasn't a man who said a lot of things that are probably slightly irrelevant but also really do add to the world building in many ways, so we forgive him. I know that Stephen King is heavily criticised for his writing about women, and sometimes it's just problematic in terms of other things he speaks about, and I'm not excusing that at all. Thankfully, by his modern books, he seems to have learned his lesson in that regard. But anyway, I am choosing to finish out this series, and hopefully by the end of this book I really get some answers and feel like it's actually been worth the ride, because I know that so many people love this series to death and I want to be one of them. But so far I've been a bit lukewarm towards it. And then why not add one more to the pile? Go big or go home. This is yet another new release book. I think it was published in June, if not May. Recently anyway, I'm not really sure, but I'm talking about The Devils by Joe Abercrombie. So I have not read any Joe Abercrombie as of yet. I do have the first book in the First Law trilogy on my shelf, so we'll be reading it later this year. Sorry, we have a little, we've just let my dog in. You know how to knock on a door, don't you? You sure do. Darlene, everyone. Good girl. Off she goes there now again after fucking shit up. So where was I? So I have the first book in the First Law trilogy on my shelves, but I haven't yet read it. And I do plan to read that by the end of this year, because as I've mentioned, I'm reading all of the physical books on my shelves and that's on there, so it's getting read. But I think that I will read this one beforehand because the next book isn't out. So I'm kind of reading as much as I possibly can within this series. Whereas if I start the first Law trilogy, I'll have to buy the rest of the books if I am enjoying it. Anyway, stop talking, Aisling. I'm going to read the blurb for this. Plague and famine stalk the land, monsters lurk in every shadow, and greedy princes care for nothing but their own ambitions. Sometimes only the darkest paths lead towards the light, paths on which the righteous will not dare to tread. And so buried beneath the sacred splendour of the celestial palace is the secret chapel of the Holy Expediency. That's a mouthful. For its congregation of convicted monsters, there are no sins that have not been committed, no lines that will not be crossed, and no mission that cannot be turned into a disastrous bloodbath. Now the hapless Brother Diaz must somehow bind the worst of the worst to a higher cause, to put a thief on the throne of Troy and unite the sundered church against the coming apocalypse. Also, end pages, quite nice. So I have heard that this is a really interesting read and feels quite fresh and is very much sort of a found family-ish book again. So look, those books are my bread and butter. I love found family, and I'm really looking forward to reading this based on the reviews I've been hearing about it. So that is that. Those are the 7 books that I'm hoping to read in July. Maybe, hopefully, we'll see. Let me know if you have read any of these books, or indeed what you are planning to read in July yourself. If you've made it this far and want to leave a comment but don't know what to leave me some sort of little dog emoji, be it the paw or the dog or whatever, you know, seeing as we did have a little interruption there. Otherwise, pals, thanks again so much for watching. If you want to see how I get on with these books, don't forget to click that subscribe button. Otherwise, mind yourselves, take care, and I'll chat to you next week in another video.